All right, so the WAMPO Speaker Series has been providing data, news, updates, and trends, and other information to the TAC and TPB. So over the last year, we've really heard a plethora of different speakers coming to us with diverse topics, all of which have one common theme, which is change. So change is constantly happening around us. I'm sure on your drive in here, you saw the change happening on the roadways. You saw highways and byways that were created 50 years ago being transformed. Hope you didn't get into any accidents looking at the transformation. It's fascinating. But change is happening, and it's being driven by population growth, demographic growth in the region, economic growth. So we as a staff are hoping that these presentations are informative, thought-provoking, and will stimulate discussion towards action. So transportation planning is the process of defining future policies, goals, investments, and designs to prepare for future needs to move people and goods to destinations. And as elected officials within this area, you too are planners, aiding in the growth and development of your own cities and towns. So we hope that these speaker presentations have been helpful in your planning processes in your own communities as well as here at WAMPO. Today, we're going to hear a presentation by AARP. Andrea Bozarth is the Associate State Director, Community Outreach with AARP. She's going to share the findings of a 2014 AARP Livable Community Study for Wichita. It's entitled Livability for All. It's also included in your packet today. Ms. Bozarth came to the TAC meeting in February and was very well received. She's been with AARP since 2005, and her complete bio is also part of the packet. To aid in your connecting with this presentation in the transportation planning process, I've also created a trends presentation note sheet with questions that you can think about. It's under each of your tablets today. So as you're listening to Ms. Bozarth present the findings of this very fascinating study that AARP did, we'd just like to encourage you to look at how this can apply to your community in the planning process and in the governing of your communities, how this will affect transportation planning, and in particular, how will this affect how we do our long-range plans for the future. So please help me welcome Ms. Bozarth.
Hi, everybody. My name's Andrea Bozarth, and I am the Community Outreach Director for AARP. And some of you may be saying, what is AARP doing in this realm of policy? And AARP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization with a membership of nearly 38 million people. 320,000 of those members are from here in Kansas, and approximately 50,000 members live in Wichita. So we do have a good reach in the Wichita area of our membership. AARP helps people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities. We strengthen communities, and we fight for issues that matter to most families. We advocate for individuals in the marketplace by having high-quality products that are available to our members, and those all meet very, very high standards. And we provide a lot of information to the 50-plus population and to policymakers. That we do that through the AARP magazine, which is the most circulated magazine in the world. And we have an AARP website. We have AARP Espanol, and we have the AARP bulletin along with our magazine, which comes out in between the bulletins. So we're very good at getting information out to people, and we're very good at having information on the 50-plus population. Part of where we get our information is through surveys, because we ask the people above the age of 50 what it is they want to see in their communities and how it is we're able to help them. If you want to learn more about AARP, you can go to aarp.org and find out lots more about AARP. Is there a clicker? Where's the mouse? Oh, I found it. um, I want to talk a little bit today about elements of livability. The research that we did in Wichita was on livability in the community. And the elements that we looked at were individual preferences, and that is basically, what do people want? We looked at objective indicators. What does Wichita as a community currently look like? And we looked at policy interventions. What is being done and what steps are being taken to improve Wichita over the long term. We did a survey specifically on individual preferences and somewhat on objective indicators. So our findings were very informative. Wichita residents over the age of 50 have deep roots in their community. 8 in 10 have lived here for over 25 years. So 80% of your 50 plus population has been in Wichita for at least 25 years. That's over half their lives. More than 1 in 6, or 18%, has lived here between 6 and 24 years, and an additional 2% has lived in their community up to 5 years. And I understand that this is a lot of data, so I'm going to try to make it interesting so that nobody falls asleep. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them as I'm going through. And one of the big positive things was that Wichita residents over the age of 50 say they think it is important for them to remain in their home and in Wichita, and they believe their community is a good place for older people to live. So that's a very, very positive response. More than 8 in 10 people, 84% exactly, say their community is an excellent, very good, or good place for older people to live. That's a very high rating for people responding to how they see their community. It's likely influenced somewhat by the fact that people have lived here for a long time and they feel very comfortable. They're aware of what the assets of the community are, and they're aware of what services are available to them. The baby boomer population is aging, and it will shift the demographic mix in many communities over the coming decade. In 2010, people ages 65 and older represented 13% of the population, and by 2030, those older adults will represent 20% of the population, more than doubling the number from 35 million to over 72 million. Kansas is no different, especially in Wichita. In Wichita, the 65 plus population made up 14.1% of the total population in 2013. And in 2030, the 65 plus population in Wichita is projected to rise to 20.2%, so that 1 in 5 people will be over the age of 65 by 2030. That puts Wichita in the higher bracket. It's above average in the growth of how fast Wichita's aging population is growing. And not to get too technical, but that has to do with the fact when you're 75 years old, the average lifespan is 79 years approximately. But if you live to age 75, you're expected to live 13 more years. So Wichita has a high percentage of the population living to age 75, and so that puts you in a higher bracket as far as where we think the aging population will be in 2030. As the Wichita population ages, it's important for community leaders to address the current needs, anticipate the future needs, and coordinate communities' responses to an aging population. There are many principles and issues to consider in order to meet the needs of that aging population. The work that AARP does is broken into 8 domains of livability. And those 8 domains are outdoor spaces and buildings. People need public places to gather, indoors and outdoors. They need green spaces, safe streets, sidewalks, outdoor seating and accessible buildings. You need to think elevators, stairs with railings, etc., things like that. And those can be used and enjoyed by people of all ages. So when we talk about what's good for the aging population, it's also good for people that have strollers. It's good for people with young children. age-friendly city is actually an all-age-friendly city. Transportation and streets is a second domain, and driving shouldn't be the only way to get around. Public transit options can be expansive and as infrastructure dependent as a train system, or they can be as targeted as a taxi service that provides non-drivers with rides to doctor's appointments. Wichita has has the transit system, and I know that this survey was taken of all of Sedgwick County, so it includes some areas outside of the Wichita city limits. Housing is another one of the 8 domains, and researchers consistently find that older adults want to stay in their homes and communities as long as possible. Doing so is possible if the housing is designed correctly or modified for an aging in place lifestyle. The community also needs to have housing options available for people of all incomes. Social participation is one of the 8 domains. And regardless of a person's age, loneliness is often debilitating and something that needs to be taken in consideration as far as a health condition. Chronic disease and illnesses, sadness and isolation can be combated by the availability of accessible, affordable, and fun social activities. Respect and social inclusion. Everyone wants to feel valued. Intergenerational activities are great for young and old to learn to talk to each other and learn from one another, to honor each other with what they have to offer, and at the same time to feel good about themselves. Civic participation and job opportunities is another one of the domains. And an age-friendly community provides ways older people can, if they choose, continue to work for pay, to volunteer their skills and be actively engaged in community life. Community information is another domain. And age-friendly communities recognize that not everyone has a smartphone or internet access, and that information needs to be disseminated through a large variety of means. Health and wellness services. Wichita is has a very active medical community, and that bodes well in the survey. At some point, every person of every age can get hurt, they become ill, or they simply need some help. And it's important that while it's important that care be available nearby, it's essential that residents are able to reach that care and those services along with being able to afford it. And that's where transit comes in. Transportation plays in all of these activities. And actually, the key findings of the research were that the Wichitans over the age of 50 are most interested in health and wellness, housing, and transportation and streets. So those were the top 3 interests in Wichita, or in Sedgwick County. 92% said they were very interested in well-maintained hospitals and healthcare facilities. 90% stated they want a variety of healthcare professionals and conveniently located emergency rooms. 90% also said they want repair contractors who are affordable, trustworthy, and do quality work. There was also an interest in having people who do work at low cost. What tied with the housing was the transportation and streets. 90% also reported they want easy-to-read traffic signs. They want well-maintained streets and well-lit streets and corners. And what they said about the streets and corners is they want the lights to last long enough for people to cross the crosswalks. They want people to be able to be in wheelchairs and cross the crosswalks or with walkers. So it goes beyond just wanting the transit system in place and wanting the roads done. It goes into having the good corners and bike routes and things along with transportation. Among the Wichita residents age 50 in the survey, the top 3 domains are health, wellness, transportation, and mobility. And I just covered that. So I apologize. Most respondents are homeowners, and they said they would prefer to age in place. So it's not surprising that the top housing issues for importance are home repair and maintenance, and home repair contractors that will help maintain their homes. Public transportation and walkable communities promote aging in place because they provide options to maintain mobilities in one's own community. That it says here that the majority of residents age 50 say that all the community's transportation features are extremely important to them. The top of the list was the well-maintained streets, well-lit streets, and the corners being very usable. And all of this is in your packet, so it's a little hard to read the signs, or the slides, but it is in your packet for you. A need can be identified as a gap between what is and what should be. Every community has its own culture, social structure, traditions, history, and needs. A community need can be something concrete like more sidewalks, or abstract like greater social inclusion of a population. A needs assessment is a tool to understand and identify community needs. The top community needs, as identified by importance versus presence gaps, are concentrated in 3 key areas: community information, housing, and job opportunities. What that means is that people in Wichita saw what they wanted compared to what exists to be missing in those top 3 areas. The demographics of Wichita are pretty interesting. Multi-generational households may be one of the crucial factors impacting the success of a livable community. The U.S. Census reports that in 2010, 16% of the population lived in multi-generational households. That's 6.1%. And that share is even larger for the 60-plus population. In 2010, about 20% of adults age 65 plus lived in multi-generational households. And in Wichita, 3 in 10 people over the age of 50 live in multi-generational households. That may be a way that people can stay in their own homes in the future, is by living in the multi-generational households. It's something that can at least be considered. Internet usage, it may surprise you that more than half of Wichita residents in this survey over the age of 50 say they get online several times every day. And only 19% say they never go online. So you have 80% of the population of Wichita that's over the age of 50 being online on a regular basis, and many times, multiple times a day. In conclusion, the survey shows that Wichitans intend to stay in Wichita and preferably in their home, and that the 50-plus population has a definite idea about what it is they want in their community. And one of the things they want in their community is good transit and good transportation systems. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
One of the things mentioned was community information that was not online.
Right.
What suggestions or what works for the people that want that information?
Some of the things that can work are, it sounds very simple, but flyers in churches. Flyers, if you have information to get out, get it to the churches, to the ministerial alliances, so they can get it to their congregations. Grocery stores have bulletin boards, and grocery stores have kind of become a gathering place for people. Most people go to the grocery store once a week, and so bulletin boards there. Mailings, mass mailings are probably the best way to get the information. I know they're expensive, but it's probably the best way to get the information to people.
Second question was, where do you find these high-quality, low-cost repair people? I'm looking at them.
I'm just reporting the survey. I don't know where you find those. I would like to find someone like that too. Angie's List. Any other
More
questions?
question. You know, this is good information. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Kind of
time.
surprising to me, at least, on some of the data points, but
Great.
it's good stuff. Good stuff. So,
Thank you all for your time.
thank you.